Kia ora koutou te whānau. Welcome back to another edition of Big Hairy News with Clint and Pat.
Hey.
Kia ora, Clint. How are you, man?
Hey, mate. I'm good, man. I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
No, thanks for jumping in. Chewie's off watching bands and doing fun things and doing stuff, and we're just here holding down the fort, as they say. How are you doing? Haven't had you around for a while.
Yeah, no, I'm good, mate. I'm good. Busy, but it's when you're self-employed, it's good to be busy. So
yes, very, very true. We often do on a Monday. We have a look at what happened over the weekend. Often me and Chewie talk about something we've watched. I saw. Is it on Apple TV? It's on one of the streaming services. The Amateur over the weekend with Rami, the guy who played Freddie Mercury in the Queen biopic. It was all right. Quite liked it. He's basically works for I think it might be the CIA, but he's like a office guy. Works in the offices, does all the computer tech stuff, and his wife gets killed, which is part of the preview. So you know this, and then he has to turn himself from being kind of one of the tech guys to sort of going out and hunting these guys down, and sort of he's never going to get there. So does he uses sort of his office skills, his brains to do all his work. It's actually, I think Rotten Tomatoes only had it at about 64%, but I quite enjoyed it. Rami Malek, isn't it? I think that's his name. Rami Malek. Yeah, it was cool actually. What about you? Anything over the weekend worth telling us about?
Oh, funnily enough, I was just talking to someone the other day. There's a new War of the Worlds movie coming out, and it's starring Ice Cube, and apparently it's awful. The reviews have been slamming it. And I was having a discussion with a mate about this, and the problem is, everyone knows the twist of War of the Worlds, right?
Yeah.
So you know how it's going to end, and how do you make a story about running around until the aliens die interesting? But apparently, it's really, really bad.
Tom Cruise did the last big version of that, and I remember it was one of the worst endings of any movie ever. It was like fighting. Someone sneezed, they all die. And that is kind of how it ended. It was like one person sneezed, and then all the aliens just died, and that was the end of the movie.
And the tension was meant to be between his son, who wanted to fight, and him, who wanted to protect his daughter. And in the end, everyone lives, so it doesn't matter. No choice. Yeah.
Well, whānau, lots going on tonight. We have got Emmy Rākete and Tania Waikato on Marae over the weekend talking about both the changes to election law around registration, and also this allegation that it would appear mostly Maori being dropped off the Maori roll, and either just not on any roll or being swapped to the non-Maori, the general roll. So they talked about that on Marae. I'll have a look at that. Also, news out over the weekend. I guess it was the National Party conference, eh?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I think coming out the back of that, they're talking about NCEA being gone burger. Yeah, it's an interesting one. This, I'm a parent. I've had two kids go through NCEA. I've got one in it at the moment, and I'm one of those. I'm not quite a troglodyte, but I'm one of those people who's like, I just don't understand this achieved excellence, merit. You know, I remember one of my kids, it mightn't have been NCEA actually, it might have been younger, coming back and they got a -1 something as a score. And I'm like, what does that mean? So there's a part of my old manness that likes that ABCD thing going on. But because we're on this show not particularly trusting of this government, I want to see the devil in the details, to see exactly what they're planning. And yeah, I don't think there's any necessarily bad system. It's how it's implemented, and more importantly, how it helps those kids who fall through the cracks as well. Yep. So I guess it's a bit of a wait and see. And also, Christopher Bishop had the worst job in media over the weekend. He had to defend Luxon's popularity on Q&A, which was difficult for him at the best of times. So there you go. Lots of stuff going on, but as always on a Monday, we want to start off by saying g'day to a few patrons who have joined up over the last week or so. So hello to Bob and to Trinity and to Otter and to HGZ, to Hamish Smith, to Ariana and to Josh, who have all become patrons over the last wee while. Thank you for being a part of us. Thank you for joining us and being a part of what we do. Also wanted to tell you a little story. Oh, if you are a patron, by the way, it gets you access to various things. Like, for example, you get access to early access to things like things in the store. So I'll tell you a story, eh? There we go. We finally figured out, got taught how to use some of the cutting equipment that we've got to use vinyl. And I wanted to do a test to get this vinyl thing. And I had some pink vinyl given to us from the people who sold us the gear. And I thought, let's test the BHN pink. Actually, I'll go back to full screen so you can see a bit better. And so I put it out there and I made this pink one, which it's not as pink in that camera as it is in real life. It really is fluorescent pink. And I thought, that looks like something that Emily would wear. Of course, Emily, the queen of pink. And so I messaged Emily and said, do you want me to put this on a hoodie for you? And she said yes. And so that's Emily's hoodie there in the background. But then I went to the patrons and I said, hey team, what do you think? We're throwing on the ship. I don't know why I said ship, should be shop. Hot pink on black. And overwhelming response of hells to the yes. So ask and you shall receive. The patrons over the weekend got early access to a limited run of hot pink BHN gear. Now, early access only because we hadn't told anybody. It's on the BHN store right now. So what I've done, and I told you guys about 2 months ago that there was going to be a slight price increase because our people supplying us, our suppliers, have had a slight increase. So I've had to put the new stuff on at the new price. But what I've done is I've loaded up every bit of the other merch at the old price for, I was going to say for August. I might not have enough stock to do it for August because I bought a bunch of this stuff previously, so it's the old prices, yeah? But at least let's say until the end of next week, where other prices might have to increase as well. So all of the regular stuff is there. And for example, Nikki No Boats was out of stock. But as you can see now, the blue one is all back in stock. And the two new items at the moment. Now, this is a limited run, limited in the fact that I only have a limited amount of pink vinyl. We literally did it as a test. It looks shit hot. And so when we put it up on Patreon, people were like, yes, please, hells to the yes. So there is a limited BHN hot pink edition. It will be gone when it's gone, and it won't be long. So if you're interested, you can get in there and get one. And of course, the OGs out there will realize this is the original BHN merch, except it was on a red top. Now, because we've got the cutter, we've been taught how to use the cutter to cut vinyl only. The red is coming back, but we have no red vinyl at the moment. So for this week, we're just going to do this special, kind of a bit of a one-off. Hot pink BHN only on black because it looks shit hot on black at bhnshop.nz. Now it is the new price because we've had to buy it at new price. The other one is some of the designs that Emily came out with last week. The four hosts that is there as well. Pat and Chewie and Emily and Magenta. Just that, no BHN, no branding, just the hoodies and the t-shirts. And we consulted with Ems on Thursday night. She thought blue or black would be good. So there you go. Black hoodie, looks pretty tight if you ask me. It's about 220 by 220 if you want to imagine that on a hoodie yourself. I'm pretty close and accurate to that. If you're interested in that stuff as well, that's all there available, good to go. So just very quickly again, all of the other merch that we've got, Nikki No Boots, Chewy Fufu, the Pat and Chewy BHN, the buffer gear, the fuck around, find out, the tech, that's all going to stay at the old price, which as you'll see is $10 cheaper. For a couple of weeks, and then we are probably going to have to increase it because the supplier has increased. So bhnshop.nz, and yeah, I'm digging this one, man. I think that's a hot ass hoodie. What do you reckon, Clint?
Cool. I reckon it's great, and it's
pretty good.
You know, it's if you know, you know, right? Like it doesn't. Yeah.
I like it's nice. It's nice having something that's more like a wink and a nudge. Mm-hmm. Wink and a nudge. Wink and a nod. Nudge might be you get done for assault if you do a wink and a nudge. Wink and a nod though when you're walking past someone. It's a bit like the Nikki No Boats. If you know, you know, or the Chewy Fufu. But so there you go. bhnshop.nz for the hot pink, the special hot pink edition hoodie and t-shirt and black only, and the four hosts hoodies and t-shirts, and then all the other gear at the moment at the old price. I'll give you a couple of weeks because I know people have been waiting for sizings to come in. It's all sorted now. I'll give you guys a couple of weeks if you want to get it at that price before we have to unfortunately increase it. I'd rather not. Mind you, I was looking the other day. I got a mate who does merch. He sells his hoodies for $160. So I'm just like, geez, 110. That sounds all right to me, but 100 for the next couple of weeks at least anyway. Right, Clint, you good?
Yes.
You down?
I am good. I am down, mate.
Damn. Have I done all my work? think I've done all my work. I've said thanks to the patrons. Oh, I'll tell you something else, which I hadn't really planned to tell you, but I'll tell you anyway. The website is continuing on. The Big Hairy Network website. And oh, look at this. I didn't even know those had been put there. There you go. So some work's happening behind the scenes. That's cool. So you've got Frontline, Locked Out, Big Hairy News, all there with video walls as well as links straight to the YouTube channels. We are building this slowly but surely. And one of the things we are going to launch in the next few days is a blog on there. And I'll tell you guys why. And Clint, this may interest you at some stage. I got an email from a nurse who just basically said, I'm really angry. Now, I'm not going to say anything too much about that email yet because I've asked her if I could write a short intro and outro and then share her email because it's like 300, 400, 500 words about, it's not just now are nurses going, shall we go to Australia? It's nurses are going, how do we get out of nursing? She is just angry. Now, obviously, I could use parts of it in an article and post it, but I'd rather just pretty much put the whole thing, obviously redacting any personal information. And I just thought, and this is where it might interest you, Clint, if there are people out there that want to share their stories to an audience and they don't feel like coming on for an interview, they're a part of a community that maybe they need to keep anonymity. Maybe they work for a union that deals with the shipping industry. Maybe they are nurses. Maybe they are doctors. That maybe we can make this place a space where they can come to us and then we can put their words out there. So hopefully at some stage this week, if I hear back from the nurse in question, I won't say her name because it's completely anonymous. We'll also have a blog set up on the site as well, and you'll be able to read some of those stories as well.
What a great idea.
.nz. Yeah, I like writing. I like writing articles, but I'm not consistent enough to have an actual blog going or a Substack. Yeah, but I thought actually if we can, much like the vibe of the whole show, think about this as more of a community space, maybe your odd guest person who wants to put some thoughts out there and we can use it as a way to get information out to the public in the written form. If they don't want to come on, people don't want to come there. Yeah. So there you go. Yeah. So if you know anyone, Clint, or you yourself,
that's a great idea.
Have a bit of a chin wag. Okay, bunch of stuff going on tonight. Couple of little tidbits to start with. I don't know if anyone else saw this on Twitter over the weekend, but an interesting piece by what's his name again? Thomas Coughlin in the New Zealand Herald. Let me read this to you. The Labour world is learning all the right lessons from the Trump campaign. The left has a raft of podcasts, mainly fronted by men, more genteel and less given to mad conspiracy than their American counterparts, which tend to run very long, digging deep into many of the government flaws. The ratings are far from Joe Rogan, but they aren't half bad either. And it's quite unlike anything on the right, which seems a wee bit, 2023. So that was out of an article, it might have even been before the weekend, and I just tweeted out, wonder who Thomas Coughlin was talking about.
Some good appreciation.
I'm actually, we say this about you all the time. You're someone who was on the ninth floor in a government. What do you think, like in America, they say that brosphere helped Trump get elected. What do you think these political parties should be doing in the independent news? Because it does feel like that hasn't quite gotten through. It feels like Winston Peters uses that particular independent news, and as does David Seymour. But it feels like that those guys on the left, although we have a great relationship with them, with us personally, what would you be saying to them? Would you be saying to them, get on as much as you can, get in these spaces? How do you think politicians at the moment should be using sort of independent media space in New Zealand?
Look, I really encourage them to go on podcasts like yours and others because it's great practice for them to get out there and defend their ideas. I was actually talking to a Labour MP who I won't name the other day who's been on your show, and we were saying you can go along to a town hall meeting and it'll be the left loyalists turn up and you get a couple of dozen people, or you can go on BHN and talk to, thousands, and that's huge. And it's not somewhere where you go maybe to talk to the disconnected voter. There's other avenues to do that. Pound the streets, go out, go to the markets, go to the churches, go to those kind of community events where you can try and talk to those voters. But to talk to the base voters, to activate them, to give them some hope, and communicate what you want to be talking about to your base, that's really powerful. And the right does it with the platform, and it's a really important tool. I mean, you can see where it gets can go wrong in the right and in the platform, where they get into this crazy, as Thomas said, this all like ranty little headspace where they go off in conspiracy theories. But done right, it's an amazing way to communicate with your base.
Yeah, I'm intrigued to see what happens, because typically the guys on the right don't come near us. I've stopped being quite so productive, but certainly for quite a long time, I regularly emailed, maybe not monthly, but let's say 6 weekly, all of the leaders of the political parties. And, Mr. Luxon came back to us, or his people came back to us. It was always a no. And I just said, should we just, I don't want to waste my time or yours. Should we just stop asking? Is this never going to happen? And they were like, oh, no, keep asking. I don't think it's ever going to happen. But I'm interested to see what they do next year. Because actually, when you look across what we've got, we do across all of our platforms, including like Twitter and TikTok and all that kind of stuff, we speak to about 250,000 New Zealanders a month. So I wonder if they'll deem that worthwhile in an election year, even if they don't want to come on during the off year, so to speak.
Yeah, and there's the thing about, even if it's not home turf, like showing that you're not afraid to go along to an outlet that is, maybe more on the other side, and defend your ideas and have that conversation. That's why, I think probably not so much after his most recent comments, but you've seen left-wing politicians still go on the platform for that reason, that they can at least say, look, I've been on the platform, I've defended my ideas, I'm not afraid. I think right-wing politicians would be smart to assess that option with platforms like BHN.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what happens next year. I've got your tweet as well, which we'll share, but that's actually kind of part of a story. I just want to show a story from Australia over the weekend. We're not really delving deeply into this, but this is amazing. Sydney's about the same size as New Zealand population-wise, give or take.
Yeah.
So we would consider in New Zealand a hikoi of 90,000 people to be pretty impressive across the whole of New Zealand. Mm-hmm. Well, that's what Sydney got in their pro-Palestinian protest over the weekend. And not only did they get 90,000, they crossed the Sydney Harbour Bridge. I believe that they crossed it where they didn't have permission to cross it, but they just went anyway because the police were like, no arrest. I think they just basically did it. It's a pretty impressive sight. Let's have a look.
Stop starving Gaza! Stop starving Gaza! Stop starving Gaza! Stop starving Gaza!
It was the protest that brought Sydney to a standstill. Thousands marching across the harbour bridge. Despite the rain that come from all over the city and beyond.
We just wanted to protest about what's going on in Gaza at the moment. There's too many deaths of young children, too much starvation.
It's a sign of the turning time.
I mean, look at that. That's a lot of, I know I've just said 90,000, but when you see it as well, it's pretty impressive.
Of the opinion in this country, and it's a sign that people aren't going to put up with it anymore.
The choice of location was intended to send a powerful message.
Concern for the starvation of the Palestinian people expressed in Sydney on our famous bridge. That'll go right round the world.
Mm-hmm. The New South Wales Jewish Board of Deputies expressed disappointment that the protest was allowed to go ahead on such an iconic landmark. For almost 2 years, protesters have marched nearly every weekend in Sydney. This time was different.
If this is your first march for Palestine, welcome. Everyone from everywhere is here.
Among the protesters was WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange. Many have been moved to march for the first time by the images of suffering in Gaza.
The starving children of Gaza cannot wait another day. End the violence.
There are growing numbers of us who are Jewish, proudly so, who say this does not represent us or who we stand for at all.
For some, the sheer numbers of people turning up was overwhelming.
I can't look at the crowd. I'm not crying. I can't. Thousands have braved this weather, the courts, and the warnings of the New South Wales Premier Chris Minns to be here today.
That's what makes me think it wasn't authorised. Warnings of the thing. And look, this is a really interesting conversation. I mean, we could stay here for a few minutes if you want. We'll go back to the story, but I'm intrigued by listening to a lot of American commentators and how that, like Republicans under 50 are now against, quote unquote, what Israel is doing. Republicans over 50, different thing. And then obviously the left is very concerned with the genocide going on, Like Mehdi Hassan said in the weekend, he got accused of being a black and white, being a black and white conversation, and he just said genocide is a black and white conversation, my friend. I'm sorry, but it just is. And this is going around the world. We'll get to the end of this, then we might have a bit of a chat anyway, even though it's not part of the planned program.
Their message is the loudest it's ever been. They are deeply concerned about the level of human suffering taking place in Gaza. They want it to stop, and they're calling on the Australian government to act now.
There was confusion as police sent text messages to protesters on the bridge telling them to stop and turn around.
Hi, Sergeant James here. Can you turn around? Yes, okay. Oh, Sergeant James just texted me. I should turn around, apparently.
Yeah, we all got to turn around, all 90,000 of us.
50 reasons. A short time later, it was announced people heading to the city could walk back over the bridge to avoid a crowd crush at the northern end.
We had to scramble, we had to make snap decisions. It came very close to us having almost a catastrophic situation.
Thousands more protested in Melbourne. Marchers tried to walk across the King Street Bridge, but were turned back by a line of police officers.
You see there, though, talk about civil disobedience. I mean, they've closed the bridge down anyway. Because obviously, line of police, the bridge is now shut. So they didn't get to walk across it, but their civil disobedience has probably done in part what they wanted to, which was create an issue to bring attention.
And good to see, the cops allocating hundreds of police hours to, stand on a bridge so people can't walk across a bridge rather than, solving some crimes or something, Great allocation of resource.
But were turned back by a line of police officers. In Adelaide, hundreds gathered at Parliament House in the city centre. A day for ordinary people to make their voices heard. Nabil Al-Nashar, ABC News, Sydney.
So I thought about this today, actually. And look, to be honest, we've known this for a long time. But when you just kind of finally get a thought that solidifies your thoughts, and it's like, if you don't acknowledge what's going on in Gaza at the moment, there are still some people saying there's no starvation. If you don't acknowledge that now, if you don't see or say about that now, you are willfully ignoring it. Like there's no debate anymore, And I'm sure you've seen around the place that Green Beret, we featured him last week, who's come out giving the examples of what's going on, and that just tragedy of a story where he's holding up the photo of a small Palestinian boy who kissed him on the hand, who then, within a few minutes of doing that, was shot in the head by IDF snipers and stuff. So, it's if you're not, let's not even get into the politics of it with someone. If you're not at least acknowledging what's happening, then it's willful. You're willfully ignoring what's going on. Clint?
Yeah, and it's taken so long for the Western political elite to wake up to it. One of the first times I was on with you guys, early last year, we were talking about this, and it was already horrible and unjustifiable. And they had Netanyahu over in Congress, and everyone stood and applauded for him. Rounds of applause, and now they're all starting to realize what they've been applauding. And, I think it's telling that that was ABC, wasn't it? Had a Arab reporter covering it. it's not so long ago that any coverage of what's happening in Palestine from an Arab was, not trustworthy, right? And so I think that, the center of gravity on this conversation has shifted, but only because of the immense human suffering that is occurring, and it's taken too long. And, to think that even saying anything about this was getting kids kicked out of university and deported from countries and branded Hamas lovers, and now you can have 90,000 people walk across the Sydney Harbour Bridge and acknowledge this and truth, and finally it can be covered in a way that isn't, horrible and frames anyone who objects to what is happening in Gaza as a terrorist.
Yeah, and you still hear those, and I'm thinking of one particular commentator. They're wearing the Hamas scarf and that kind of stuff. If you're still talking like that today, it's willful. It's just you are. I don't believe anyone with an ounce of sincerity won't look at the broad reaction to what's happening in Gaza, whether it's international aid agencies, whether it's British doctors who are coming out, whether it's American soldiers who are coming out and go, they're all lying and Israel's telling the truth. You know what I mean? It has to be willful, because just logic dictates not everyone's lying. And if you've got hundreds of people who have been there and seen that are saying one thing, and one government who is, or affiliates to that government who have a vested interest saying the other, yet the others who aren't connected are all saying the same thing, it's willful. It's just willful.
It's even, there are Israeli ministers coming out and saying exactly what they want to do to the people of Gaza.
Yeah, Smoke Ridge or something his name is. Yeah,
they're pretty blatant about it. It's just horrible. It really is.
Yep. Which was really pithy. A pithy turn into a new topic then. Now, look, I'll tell you what, the thing there was also lots of conversations in America about how people like Cory Booker, I think, who was a Democratic senator or congressman, I always get them confused. He was in a photo with Benjamin Netanyahu, but apparently he was hiding his face. And then there was other American Democrats who were in with him, showing. And I think I heard, and Mehdi Hassan is like the goat in all of this, him saying something like, what's happening in America, what's happening in Gaza at the moment amongst, and I'm going to have a stab at the numbers, I'm pretty sure I'm accurate. It's like amongst Democratic politicians, 13% are going like genocide, it's bad. Amongst the public, it's 88%. And you don't see that. And the unfortunate thing, and the example that was given was on same-sex marriages. What happens is politics often follows popular opinion. And like we remember, Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama were saying no to same-sex marriage right up until sort of the 2000s, in the 20s, the 20 aughts. And then popular opinion swayed, and then they went with it. Popular opinion on this is swayed, it's gone. Yet some of these politicians aren't going with it. And other ones are trying to do a Donald Trump about the war in Iraq. I know I've always been on that side of history. I've always been. And, they will be seen. There was a very good interview last week on Breaking Points with Saga and Crystal Ball. It's the best name in the world. Got a Democratic senator, female one, I can't remember her name off the top of my head, and she just said to her, you're complicit. You voted for these, you voted to support Israel getting funding. How does it feel being complicit? And they know it's big because it broke the mainstream in America. Often the independent news, even though we look to it as a big source, doesn't break mainstream, but that story and the Mehdi Hassan Jubilee, those two stories broke mainstream media quite heavily. So yeah. Anyway. Yeah. Okay. David just says quickly in the chat, Supreme Court would not stop the walk. I'm assuming we're saying, David, the Supreme Court in obviously America. Aussie. Sorry. I was thinking Australia. That was my stupid brain. But he said would not. So that means maybe that was applied and they went, no, right to protest. And we'll do Alex's one now. Alex often talks about things in his neighbourhood that are going on, but it might be a segue to get out of Gaza into something else. Something I want to say is whoever becomes the next government, they need to look at the rates for the supported living payment as a cost of the living crisis. It's hurting people who rely on the SLP, supported living payment. There you go. Thank you. And one last one from JC. Oh, do you want to talk to that? I heard you take a breath.
I was just gonna say, because one of the things this government has done is change how the annual increases and main benefits go. The Labor changed it to be tied to wages, and now they've changed it back to tied to CPI. In fact, CPI is a really bad measure of inflation for that as beneficiaries experience it, and the tie it to wages made larger increases. And I could go on about this, but the difference between ATC and supported living payment, huge problem there. Yeah, that huge issue.
And finally, JC says, come in late going, what's the story with ACT Party being all pro-IDF? Is that to do with who funds them, or do they think is anti-woke cool? I mean, people talk about the funding. I mean, I don't think it's quite as prevalent in New Zealand as it is in places like America, but you vote the way that your sponsors, your financial backers want you to vote sometimes. Don't know. All right. Let's get into this. Let's go back to school, shall we? This is a story from One News. I'm assuming this all came out of the party conference over the weekend, but it seems to have broken last night and today. National Party in the late 90s floated NCEA, started in the early 2000s, I guess under Labor, because it was 2002, that would have been Auntie Helen. And now they're saying enough is enough. They're overtly coming out and going, we suck at planning these. Our system doesn't work. No, I didn't quite do that. But and so we're going to do it again. So NCEA could be gone, Burger. Let's have a look at what they're talking about.
Old school grades are set to return, with all levels of NCEA to be abolished. The government is proposing to bring in an internationally benchmarked national qualification for secondary school students that it says, quote, opens doors for every young person, whether they're heading into a trade, university or straight into work. The reform's moving away from the current standards-based assessment to a subject-based approach, and it'll be phased in over the rest of the decade, fully in place by 20.
It does feel very 1980s, 1990s to me. Like back, like getting New Zealand back on track, like Mr. Luxon kept talking about. Maybe that's what we're talking about.
30. The proposed changes include Year 11 students no longer sitting NCEA Level 1, instead focusing on building skills in literacy and numeracy, recognised through a new standalone Foundational Skills Award. There'd be 5 subjects in Years 12 and 13, with students needing to pass at least 4 to earn each certificate. The grading system would change, with marks out of 100 alongside A to E grades. And there'd be new subjects in areas such as construction.
A to E. Because it used to be 80 to 100 was an A. Like 60 to 80 was a B. And then you get a C from like 50 to 60. What do we still got? D, A, B, C, D,
and E. Fail, wasn't it? Yeah.
Okay. All right. E used to mean entrance. My kids talk about that. I got E. I was talking about when they're last year at school. Yep, we got E. So it's like, unless they had a party that weekend and they weren't telling me about it. Could be that as well, I guess.
And hospitality. The government saying it'll work with industry to make sure students have the skills required to enter the workforce.
Again, something going back to our kind of when Polytechs were Polytechs, not universities. That's what they were. They were Polytechs. You'd go in there and you'd learn a trade. And there were schools. It was that horrible thing. I don't want to oversimplify it, but the kids that were better with their hands, not quite good academically, that had a path for them to go, and they could well be the plumbers or the builders or the mechanics. So it does feel a bit like we're going back to that.
There's already a bit of this, because I mean, one of my mates' daughters, she, in her last year at high school, she was doing half of it as a kind of a work experience with in a trade. So you wonder how much new that is.
I'm about what's best and what works best. As I said at the start of the show, devil will be in the detail. This government, I don't find very trustworthy. Like to be able to go, oh, they'll do it right. So I want to know more details before I kind of go absolutely not or 100% yes. Because it could be a change for the better. It could be a change for the worse. It could be a change that makes no difference. We don't know until we get all the details.
Yeah. I think that, there's always been the criticism of NCEA that understanding where people are at is harder than with the a grade system. But does that mean you throw the baby out with the bathwater? That would be the question for me, especially since if we're sort of reverting back to what we had, and that was thrown out by the Nats because it wasn't working. Yeah.
All right. Let's play a bit more.
But there are fears many pupils will end up being left behind. Here's senior political reporter Benedict Collins.
An audience of business bigwigs gathering at an Auckland law firm to hear the government unveil its new plan for our school kids.
We are proposing to replace NCEA with a new national qualification that better ensures our young people are ready to take.
It's going to be a certificate that they do at school. We're going to call it school certificate.
What?
It's going to be something that helps them get entrance into university. We're going to call it university entrance.
So, for my sins, I've been involved in a lot of policy launches over the years, and the design of your policy launch, where you're going to hold it, who you're going to be speaking to, is a big part of that. So, how he ended up speaking in a conference hall in Auckland to lawyers is weird. This kind of suggests that it hasn't been developed with the educational community, because surely, if you had the teachers or the educational academics on board, you'd be announcing it with them, and they'd be going, yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, true, actually. And Carl points out, I hope they don't mean a national qualification, which is very true. All right, let's get back to our hairless leader.
Take on the world.
NCEA was introduced over 20 years ago, offering a more flexible education. But now it seems it's become a little too flexible.
And I have to admit, as a parent, I didn't understand why the children said to me, we don't need to sit the exam because we have enough credits already. And coming out of an exam, a 3-hour exam after only an hour.
Yeah, that's bullshit, Erica. You do understand, because you just explained it, that they built up enough credits. You're old enough, to remember School C being internally assessed. And if you get enough marks for internal assessment, then the end of year exam, it mattered because it could keep that on. But if you're already past 50% from your internals, then they didn't need it to pass. So come on. You don't need to make up bullshit. You can say, I didn't like the way they did it, but you don't I don't understand. Yes, you do, because you explained it. So obviously you understand.
And this speaks to the concern, is that this is kind of being done for political purposes rather than coming out of, educational science and good understanding of what actually leads to good educational outcomes. The fact that it's been spun like this, and that it's not happening in front of educational experts, it's happening in front of lawyers, kind of says that this has been done for politics rather than out of an actual assessment that this is the best path forward. And it kind of makes me think of the Inter-Islander ferries, or the Dean Hospital, or State House build, or all those things where they kind of said, no, we're throwing out what's happening because we reckon we can do better, and we also reckon there's a political hit to be had here. That's the concern.
Well, the thing as well, and they haven't quite got to it yet, but at the start it said, implemented by 2030. And I went, okay, so a couple of years of consultation, a couple of years of trials, and they'll put it in there. And then they went, that means fully implemented. They're going to start the changes to year 9s next year. That's 4 months. And I'm sorry, I don't know. I don't care how efficient you are as a government, redesigning the way you educate 13-year-olds in 4 months. Again, this is not it won't work, but I'm comfortable saying in 4 months you will not get a good enough result in planning over 4 months.
There's a lot of self-confidence here that has perhaps not been borne out by the other things that they've decided to tear apart, and I do think it's a bit of a disease of both major parties, is the temptation to do reform and shuffle the deck chairs rather than actually concentrate on what is the science telling us is the best option here, and are we resourcing the system properly. They, rather than up resources, they're like, well, can we rearrange it to try and squeeze some more juice out of what we're already putting in.
All right, we'll get a bit more from this.
We don't need to sit the exam because we have enough credits already. And coming out of an exam, a 3-hour exam after only an hour, and saying that's okay, Mum.
So NCEA is getting the biff. Foundational skills awards and certificates of education are on the way in.
So by getting really clear about what we're asking kids to do, getting them into the core subjects that actually get.
And now they're away from Chapman Trap, whatever they're called, Chapman Trip, and they're offered another one. They're offered the Voice of Business, continuing this conversation on. They've left the lawyers, and now they're at a business meeting. That's a very astute observation you've just made. You'd want to have this in front of the teachers' unions, or amongst a group of high school principals. I was thinking presidents there, but they're not presidents, are they? Principals. So that's a really interesting, really interesting observation.
Give them the foundational knowledge that they need to build out their education from there. That's really important stuff.
And this new qualification gives you that deep subject learning, and consistent across the country. It doesn't matter if you're at school at Rangitoto College, where my kids are, or at Katikati College, or anywhere else in the country. They will get access to the same internationally benchmarked strong curriculum.
And you couldn't have just made tweaks to NCEA or made changes and kept that qualification as it is now?
We started with everything on the table with the professional advisory group, but the structure of the qualification with the standards-based assessment, it makes things really challenging.
It will be gradually phased in over the next 5 years.
This is how New Zealand becomes a wealthier country by virtue of being able to access higher paying jobs as a result.
Now, that bit feels like CEO talk.
Yeah.
We're going to go back to school certificate and we will all be wealthier because of it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, hang on. I don't quite, that feels like spin alley. You know, that's like you're trying to justify this move, which then again doesn't give me that sense of confidence, because that sounds like bullshit. I smell bullshit. You know, he's got something brown on his chin. He's talking shit because it's, how does that then lead to us all being wealthier? That just feels like a bit of a spin. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think, look, obviously education is foundational to the potential of a country. It's, you know, human resource, not, you know, it's a horrible way of saying it, but, you know, the potential of our people to do those jobs is really important. But again, if you want to do that, you're going to make marginal differences at best by tweaking the assessment system, right? What really makes a difference is more teachers, more TAs, the ability to have the resourcing to actually make sure. And that's why if you look at a private school, they have really low teacher to pupil ratios, right, compared to a public school, because they know that's how you get the best educational outcomes. And so, you know, I think that a world-class education system should be part of New Zealand's economic future. It should be something we could export to the world. We could be attracting people here, you know, more at university level, at all levels. But we have to be willing to make the investment to have a world-class education system. And tweaking the assessment system just feels like rearranging the deck chairs.
And let me remind all of us, the Regulatory Standards Bill is a government bill. We'll see if Winston blows it up or not. Part of the Regulatory Standards Bill. When developing regulatory standards, it is crucial to consult with those who will be impacted to ensure the standards are effective and fair. This process helps identify potential issues, gather diverse perspectives, and improve the overall quality of regulations. I wonder how much consultation has been done with principals and teachers and people in the education sector. I mean, because their regulatory standards bill say you have to consult with those being impacted by it. I suspect not many have. So are they breaking their own regulatory standards bill, which is not law yet, but when it becomes law, are they therefore breaking it because what consulting's been done?
Yeah, well, it's the same. There's no benefit cost analysis, is there?
Nope.
You know, and yeah, like I say, I think a lot of times governments of both stripes do this thing where they decide they're going to reform an institution or sector after their reckons of what's best, and there's just no evidence that the change will be worth the hassle.
And the Prime Minister always goes back to, whether he's right or wrong, right? I don't think there's any evidence for what he said, but nonetheless, he always goes back to, this will be the financial reward for this legislation. You know what I mean? Like, according to him, as long as there's a positive financial result, that's in and of itself is enough of a reason to do change to legislation. Like some regulatory changes or some legislation changes might make us healthier. They might not make us richer. They might make us happier. But his only yardstick seems to be money. We'll all be richer. You know, like that. I don't think that, I'm fine for that to be a way of measuring things, but it seems to be his only way of measuring things.
Which is ironic when considering how badly the economy's going under him.
Well, let's get to the Greens and see what they have to say about this. And look, again, I'm not actually necessarily anti this. This is like announcement one. Details, please. The Greens have come up with some thoughts, though.
But not everyone's convinced. It's a good move.
Education is about curiosity. It's about creating lifelong learners. So we shouldn't be looking at education purely through the narrow lens of the economic framework or labor market.
Well, no disrespect, but I don't think we take advice from the Green Party on education policy.
Because
he always says no disrespect before being disrespectful.
But why? This is my 5-year-old podcast moment. But why? What? Because if you were taking, it sounds like what you're saying is taking advice from the late 90s National Party didn't work because you're changing it. So why not get the Greens involved? Why not make this that horrible word of bipartisan? Why not get some people across the board? Why not, if this is about the kids in New Zealand, if this is about the future of New Zealand, involve all the political parties and say, guys, let's get together, let's build something so that when you guys come in, you can still support it. Why not? That doesn't sound like a terrible thing to do. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Like, the last thing we would want to do is, it turns out that this system is so horribly outdated that it then itself has to be torn up and replaced again. And so you have to create enduring solutions. And actually, that's what National did in the 90s. It was, I was having a little look at the history of this before we came on, and it took years. That identified the problem. They took years, and Labour critiqued it at the time a bit, but there was a genuine effort, I think, to make it endure, and that's why Labour still implemented it, even though it had been announced and developed under National. And so we need, for things like this, we can't be having that snarky politics. This has to be enduring.
And it's not the same policy, but it's a bit like, I wish they'd get together on infrastructure. If you're looking at a 40-year plan, obviously you're going to have to, like ferries, for example. Nikki, no boats? Anyway, let's get to the end of this, shall we?
Well, Paroa College thinks the new plan has merit.
Yeah, NCEA has been around for just on 2 decades now, so it's time for an update, time for a change, the future is really positive and pretty exciting.
The bit they liked best, establishing stronger ties between schools and industry.
Yeah, that on its surface level sounds good. I like that idea. I like the idea of, having. I mean, I don't like the idea of thinking about our children being a pipeline to industry, but for the kids who want to be mechanics, or the kids who want to be builders, or the kids who want to be chefs, a way to be able to do that. And you're saying they're sort of doing that on some level now. I don't hate that idea in principle.
Well, I think that's part of actually, ironically, the idea of NCEA was, because you can have these small units, they can be, you go along, work at a mechanic, you learn how to do some small thing. It's like a micro-credential, right? And it all adds up towards the level. Whereas they seem to be saying, no, you're going to do physics, and it's going to be this big block. And if you fail or pass, and there's 5 topics a year, whereas NCEA, what's confusing for us, but as meant to be part of the sophistication, is there's lots of little credentials throughout the year that add up.
Yeah, all right.
We're in the process of setting up a trades academy, to strengthen the vocational pathways can only be better for the whole of our country, both academically and, of course, vocationally.
But for now, they'll keep on delivering NCEA, the qualification that's fallen out of favour.
There we go. That's the end of that story. Now, before we came to Air Clint, you were talking about questions around the finances for it, were you? Do you want to expand on that at all?
Yeah, no, it's just, I think I've kind of already said it, but, fundamentally they're not putting enough money into education, and this feels like a distraction. And look, if they made the grading system clearer at schools, I think that would be great. If I could understand how my kid is doing, go back to out of 100, go back to A, B, C, D, E, F, great. But it doesn't fix the fundamental problem that there aren't enough teachers. They're not paid as well as they should be so that we retain them. And they're not supported by enough teachers' assistants and all the other resourcing that schools need. And that's the fundamental problem. And if you want to improve educational outcomes, that's what you would do. But they've chosen not to. And, goes back to what you were talking about with Craig Rennie the other week. It's all choices, right? They've chosen to put bugger all money into education because they wanted to give tax cuts to landlords.
Yeah. And when we're talking about choice, for those who weren't here, it comes down to their budgets. When they say, that's outside the terms of the budget, you're like, yeah, but you guys set the budget. You have on some level have endless amounts of money if you want to, and you're saying we're going to draw a line in the sand here, then all of a sudden you can't pay for it, so therefore it's not within budget. Ferries are a perfectly good example, right? You said not $3 billion. You drew a line in the sand. It's going to cost $3 billion. It's between me and you. But you said that was a line in the sand. So you cancelled it all. You're going to try and do something better for less. You're not going to, but you decided that the budget couldn't be $3 million. It's not that it couldn't be $3 million. It was a choice you made. You drew a line in the sand and you said, this is what it's going to be. The health system, there is a budget for the health system that you go, okay, that money's going there. If you wanted to, you could hold that money there and get another pile and put it there as well. But you choose not to. They're all just choices. They're all just choices. And sitting in front of a politician going, $17 billion, that was a choice. Landlord reimbursements, tax cuts, that sort of thing. Why did you choose that over, for example, increasing the pay of teachers, nurses, doctors, police, firefighters? Why did you make that choice? I'm not going to challenge you, but you made a choice. Why did you make that choice rather than, let's say no tax on the first $15,000, which is a pretty common thing by some. Why did you make that choice? Landlords and tax cuts versus. That's what I want. That's what I want some people to ask them.
Yeah. It would be nice to see, a proper assessment of, the government spends $150 billion a year. Is it spending that money on the right things? Instead, you see, and I think we're going to watch Chris Bishop. They talk about, there's only so much money in this pot. Yeah, but you made the size of the pot.
Yeah, you went and had a ghost moment where you stood behind Demi Moore and you did this and you made the pot and you made it the size you wanted to make it. Maybe he's okay. There you go, designers. You ready for that Discord? I think Christopher Luxon in the front and Christopher Bishop behind, like on Ghost, making the pot, and then they chose to.
I'm not sure that'd be a seller, man.
Could be a T-shirt. All right, sorry, I apologise, Whānau. I went off on a tangent there for a second. Peter says the best way to improve education would be by spending more to improve the teacher-student ratio and reducing the poverty students suffer at home. Yeah, and can I say one other thing? To go back to decent school lunches, these kids who for whatever reason, I'm not going to cast aspersions, right or wrong, the only decent meal they were getting each day was at school, and then you yanked that away for them to give them offal, which was reported at the start of this term. NCEA started under national in the early 1990s. I think it was the late 90s, and then it actually kicked off in the early 2000s with Auntie Helen, I think, officially. Thank you, Kiwi Bird. Over Red Rover, this sounds like national rolling out of Cambridge exam. I guess it could just be that, couldn't it? Yeah, that does seem to be more of their vibe. Arvid says he's turning our kids into wage slaves. Yeah, that's what I was saying. And I don't like the idea of sort of school to mechanic pipeline. But I do like the idea of kids having choices, and this is not a disparaging comment, but we all had those kids at school who were academically amazing, and we all had those kids who were practically amazing. And if the kids who want to do the practical thing, they want to do that, I think it's pretty cool that there's a path for them to do that. Because my concern, Clint, is going through NCEA, if you're more practically inclined and you wanted to go down that path, but you don't pass NCEA, then that actually goes against you for getting into perhaps like tertiary education if you do want to go there and study to be a builder as well. So, it's not all just they can do it now anyway. There can be, it can hamper them going through this way as well. So,
yeah.
Sorry, was there something else, Clint?
No, just agreeing with you on that. I think the education system has got so much better at that stuff than it used to be. I look at, I remember my school days compared to how it is now, and I think they do a lot better at not letting kids slip through the cracks. But again, I don't think that necessarily comes down to the switch to NCEA or away from it or whatever. I think it's down to improvement in how teachers teach, and that's come through research and experience.
Yeah. Danger of Mouse says, so NCEA is another failed national initiative. Another one from Arvids. He also means welfare CEOs. Porava? This is another fucking waste of money. Pay teachers more and get more teachers. This is what the evidence shows. Increases results. I just like it how Porava never really beats around the bush. It's like, say what you mean, dude. It's a pipeline to industry specific training is Uni Polytech, which they're actively making worse by disbanding Te Pūkanga. And Gold says, Robin Caper raises a good point. How much is being paid to the org that runs the internationally accredited qualifications?
Yeah.
There you go. Maybe. All right. Well, let's get to one of the Chris's, the one who had to explain why people don't seem to like the other one. There was conversation around infrastructure. Chris Bishop outrightly denied that their decisions had any impact on what's happening with tradies right now. Like 17,000 in the trades have gone, and their decisions not to fund infrastructure. So nothing to do with us, he said. But they also went into a conversation around paying for things. And Jack says that one of their ideas is obviously for regions to sell assets, which of course raises a very valid question. If regions are selling assets, what does that mean for the nationalised government? Maybe are you saying you should be selling them? And he gets a very milquetoast answer.
If what's good for the gander is good for the goose, and you think that regions and cities should be considering their asset portfolio at the moment, should central government be doing the same thing? Would you support targeted asset sales?
We don't have an electoral mandate for that. We said before the election that we would not be.
An electoral mandate, like smoke-free 2025, like the ferries, like tolling a road in the Manawatu that you back down on, all those things you had an electoral mandate for. And he's about to say this term, which of course is the classic line.
The asset sales?
We don't have an electoral mandate for that. We said before the election that we would not be engaging in asset sales in this term of Parliament, so we don't have an electoral mandate, so you won't see anything happening on this side of the election. As to what the National Party decides to campaign on for next year, those are matters for next year.
Is that something that personally, though, you think there's a good argument for central government, especially given some of the revenue and fiscal pressures at the moment, to consider asset sales?
Speaking generally, I don't think the Crown is a particularly effective manager of its own balance sheet right now, but as I say, those are questions for next year.
There you go. A nice in between. Nothing to see here, but there might be something to see next year. But there's nothing to see here, but wait till next year. Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing new under the sun in some ways, right? This will be the third successive national government that's come in, cut taxes, said, oops, the books don't balance anymore, better sell some assets. And that's if they get re-elected, he's saying it. They'll campaign on it. But if they're re-elected, then expect what's left of our assets to go.
Do you think we've got? Sorry. Do you think we've got assets that we should be more concerned about selling than others, like power, for example?
Definitely the power. Yep. I think we need big reform in the electricity sector, and if we've sold off those assets, that'd be all the more hard. I think that they keep on talking about core logic, isn't it? Rateable value. You know, why do we own a property ratings company? You see National Act saying, well, because the determination of the value of the property is what underpins the finances of local government. So it is actually important that we have some public control over that. But yeah, I think anything that's not nailed down, basically, they're looking at getting quite inventive at even what they call tolling concessions, where you would take an existing state highway, say to a company, if you give us a chunk of change now, you can toll this road for the next 40 years, and we'll use that money to go build another road. They call that asset recycling, but it's an asset sale, right? And all of a sudden, a road that has been built and paid for by taxpayers is now a toll road. They're in fact changing the law to allow that, because previously you haven't been allowed to toll existing roads, and you've always had to have a free alternative. But National's changing the law around that. So yeah, they'll be quite inventive about what they sell, but I expect a lot of it. Yeah, Kaingaora, another great example. A lot of properties there, they love hocking them off. They did it last time, and they'll do it again if they get half a chance. Yeah, and they're obviously trying to force the councils to sell. They've lumped huge costs onto the councils by cancelling Three Waters, and now they're turning around to the councils and saying, also, you're not allowed to raise rates. So your costs have gone up. You're not allowed to raise your revenue. What are you going to do? You're going to sell your assets, and it's exactly what they want them to do. It's just part of their formula. Speaking of houses, they did get into a conversation around homelessness. I think is he the Minister for Housing or Minister for something like that? So they got onto homelessness. Got about 90 seconds here as they talk about the increasing issues with homelessness.
So homeless outreach groups report growing homelessness across the country. A significant surge since you tightened emergency housing eligibility in last year. So in Auckland alone, the Council's Community Committee reports a 90% increase since you made it harder for people to qualify for emergency housing. Can you just give us a straight answer? Do you accept that is one of several factors your government's emergency housing eligibility changes have contributed to an increase in homelessness and rough sleeping?
I don't accept that, and it's not what the...
That is so disingenuous. Jack was so gentle there. Not saying it's all your fault, Chris. Look, don't panic. We're not saying it's all you, but like one of several factors contributing to it. Nope. Absolutely not. Absolutely no chance. Like, it's just so disingenuous.
And this is the thing, right? Like, anyone can see that it's disingenuous, so why do it? You actually just end up in a worse position than if you'd owned up. I've always advised politicians that when you've stuffed up, own up, because you look better than trying this, and everyone's looking at you. But
not even stuffed up necessarily. I mean, I agree, stuffed up, but he could have gone, it is a contributing factor, but these are the reasons why at the moment we're heading into a better direction. Like, he could actually explain, yes, there are several things contributing, and this does have some minor impact, but the reason that's okay today is A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Now, I think he'd be bullshitting if he did do that, but just to go, nope, nothing to do with us. There's 7 contributing factors, and we are definitely not one of them. Yes, we are making it harder to get into emergency housing, but that's got nothing to do with more rough sleeping. So anyway, we'll give Jack some more.
Contributed to an increase in homelessness and rough sleeping.
I don't accept that, and it's not what the official analysis shows either, which is the Homelessness Insights report we released actually says it's not possible to draw conclusions around that increase based on policy.
So slimy and weaselly. So it's not possible to draw conclusions, which means it could be you.
Yeah. When the officials write to the minister and they say, look, we can't be absolutely sure, Minister, that what you're doing is stuffing everything up. That doesn't mean they're saying, nah, you're right, you haven't done anything wrong. They're saying, yeah, you won't even think about this, but we can't say it explicitly because, it'll embarrass the government if it comes out.
Yeah, it's a nice way to cover yourself. The officials won't criticise us because they know it'll embarrass us, even though it's kind of us. We just can't say that.
changes. Now, I accept there's a range of views out there. I've talked to the City Missioner in Auckland who has a different view, and I have a huge amount of respect for her and other people working in this space. So I'm just saying that's what the official advice says. Now, we've got a problem when it comes to rough sleeping, and I've spent much of the last couple of weeks talking to the City Mission in Auckland and other providers in Auckland and other parts of the country, as in Hamilton on Friday, meeting with the WISE group, for example, the People's Project, who do a fantastic job in Hamilton. And we've asked for some urgent advice about what we can do, but it's worth remembering that this is a long-running problem for New Zealand. So homelessness, people on severe housing deprivation, went up from 2018 to 2023. It's potentially ticked up a little bit more in the last couple of years, I think, reflecting again the broader economic environment.
Careful, Bish. You nearly admitted something there. Careful, son. Careful.
It's a long-running issue for New Zealand, and it's something that I want to tackle as housing minister, because no one wants to live in a New Zealand in which people sleep on the street or sleep in cars or sleep under park benches. It's not the New Zealand that we want to live in.
So you're right.
Yeah. So that's the response on homelessness. Nothing to do with us. Literally nothing to do. Not even one of several. Literally nothing. We have no contributing factor to homelessness or rough sleeping. Why is it going up so much under you guys, Ed?
Yeah.
International pressures. That seems to be the answer for everything else at the moment.
And now he is actually. There was another article somewhere saying that they are actually looking at whether they've made it too hard to get into emergency housing. So they do know. Of course, they've made it too hard to get into emergency housing. But he says, I think later in that piece, well, we're spending $500 million a year on emergency housing, so it can't be that there's not enough emergency housing. That it's a bit like that principle saying NCEA has been around for 20 years, so time for a change. That these are non-sequiturs, like $500 million is not necessarily enough emergency housing. It's a lot of money, but it's only 0.1% of GDP. Is that enough money to spend on emergency housing? Sounds like it's not, because there's homeless people everywhere, again, it's that thing of saying, oh well, there's only so much money in the pot for it, so it's fine.
And there was a comment that just flew past. I'll see if I can find it. If I can't find it, here we go. Ian makes a very good point. Rough sleeping is a euphemism. Here in Dunedin, the last few nights have had very heavy frosts. I dropped one of my kids to school, maybe not this week, maybe last week, and it was 0.5 degrees as we were driving through the streets of Dunedin. So yeah, not just rough sleeping. Rough sleeping would be nice compared to sleeping outside or in a makeshift tent at 0 degrees, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Okay, another little short one here for you, 60 seconds. They're going to play one clip after this one, which is a bit longer, about the voter registration changes, because then we're going to go into Tania Waikato and Emmy Rākete talking about it as well. So Mr. Bishop, on the troubles with Luxon as the preferred Prime Minister, how are we going to sell this meathead to the public?
I
mean, you're the campaign chair, right? So it's your job to pay at least some attention regarding sentiment for your party and for your party's leader. It seems incomprehensible that you wouldn't pay at least some attention to that. And my question is it a problem?
I watch the media and I watch TVNZ. I listen and watch the news, but I honestly don't spend that much time worrying about it, and we don't either. We want to work hard to create policy change to make New Zealand get ahead, and that's why I'm in politics, and that's why we're all in politics. And we will fight the next election on a very clear choice between National and Labour. We have a plan for New Zealand's economic future. The Labour Party, in their own words, quoting Barbara Edmonds, says they don't have any policies on the cost of living. And to the extent they do have a policy, it is more tax, more spend, borrow and hope. It's the wrong prescription for New Zealand.
We're obviously waiting for some policies on that front.
Well, so my understanding is they're currently weighing up whether it will be a wealth tax or a capital gains tax.
Well, they can answer those questions. So
there you go. There was obviously some build up before that, but I just didn't want to play extra 3 minutes clip. So I think Jack said to him before we got to there, if you did an average of polls of the preferred Prime Minister, what's Luxon at? And that's what Bish was going, well, don't look at the poll, I don't know, it's 22 or something, or 24, can't remember the exact number, but not great. And basically chippy neck and neck with them, at least within margin of error most of the time, which for your first term of government is not a great look, especially apparently because Labour were the devil incarnate the last time round, and if they haven't been able to shake them, it doesn't mean anything necessarily for the next election other than whatever happens, I think it'll be closer than it should be for a first-term government.
It's historically low polling for preferred prime minister. I think you have to go back to the days of Jenny Shipley to see a prime minister polling so low as preferred prime minister, and poor old Bush, he's on a bit of a hide into nothing because he can't turn around and go, "Yeah, our leader's not popular." He's got to try and bat this way somehow. But again, like the idea that the campaign chair wouldn't be looking at polling is again just not credible. Like, don't try and sell us something that we obviously know it's not true. The Nats spend huge amounts on polling. When I was in Labour, we had an idea of
David Farrell,
just the amount of polling that they're doing that other parties can't afford. It's massive, and they don't do that. And then the campaign chair gets the results from last week's polling on a Monday morning and goes, "Oh, I'm not going to look at that." That would be a dereliction of duty on the campaign chair's part if he didn't look at that polling. Of course he does.
It is going to be interesting next year. I'm not going to get into debates this year about who's going to win and stuff. But I think the only thing that we can draw from the poll of polls, or from looking at the trends, is either Labour is closer to National than they should be at this stage in first term, or National is closer to Labour than it should be. Probably that way around in this first term. And whatever happens with those two minor parties, when it's very, very obvious that David Seymour is already in election mode, and he's basically going, "Fuck the deputy prime ministership. I will just say what I want when I want and speak to my base." Now he's doing that now. So can you imagine what next year is going to be like with both Winston and David Seymour wanting to separate themselves from the Luxon train and still have to be in government with them? It's just going to be a nightmare.
The dynamics are going to be, hugely interesting. You can see Nationals getting frustrated. The fact that Labour is polling ahead of National, despite not having a platform, should concern National. It clearly is. And one of their hopes, if you watch how they're talking, is that Labour will put out probably a capital gains tax policy, fluff it, and that then they can hammer Labour's going to tax you more as their attack policy position into the election. So National's big hope now is that Labour comes up with an unpopular policy platform, because
but that's the problem with a capital gains tax. It's not unpopular. It's no longer controversial to do it. I really hope they go capital gains tax, not if they're going to pick one, and not wealth tax. The idea of older people with who are asset rich and cash poor having like a debt piling up against them, I'd much rather. I think capital gains tax just feels so much cleaner. When you sell the house, you pay the capital gains tax, rather than having to have this multi-layered system of who's going to pay, how much is it going to be. They can't afford it, so it'll go on the house to take off it next time. It just feels to me that capital gains tax is so much cleaner and easier.
Yeah, you've got to explain it really clearly. Call it a landlord tax. Don't call it a capital gains tax. Explain what it's for, and launch it. Say what it's for as well. Well, this is our health rescue fund. It's paid for by a tax on landlords. Because, and I'm getting my flashbacks here to the elections in 2011, 14, and 17, when Labour went in with different tax packages that weren't well communicated and weren't well designed. And if you've got enough vagary in it, then National will just go at you and try and scare the bejesus out of the middle class that you're coming to tax them. And if you have any vagueness at all, that invites what I call the sum of all fears problem, because anyone can be convinced that you're coming for their money and they won't vote for it. And so you have got to get that right. And National's banking on getting it wrong.
I just hope they're bold with something, because as you can see in our chat, this is literally 3 chats in a row. Leonie says, yes, CGT. James says, hell no, wealth tax all the way. It's not just on housing. And then Mike goes, would a CGT make enough of a difference, though? So you can see that, and I think you're right. The research is clear that people are happy to pay tax if they know what it's being used for, benefits society. So landlord tax, to build our hospital or pay for our health infrastructure or whatever it is. Yeah, I just hope that messaging's down the line.
But the other point you were raising about the minor party dynamics as well. Yeah, like ACT and New Zealand First need to separate themselves from national and going into the campaign without looking like they can't govern together anymore. And Labour, if they've got any sense, with Winston Peters already saying he won't work with Chris Hipkins, they will be saying a vote for Winston is a vote for Luxon to try and get New Zealand First under 5%, and effectively that would lock out National from majority. So there's going, and on the other hand, National will be saying a vote for Chris Hipkins is a vote for the Māori Party. So there's going to be a lot of these dynamics going on that unfortunately aren't about the important stuff. They're not about how do we have a fairer, more sustainable and just society, but they'll be really complicated.
I'm always, for the last several years, been of the belief that most Western societies are left-wing. It's just that the left-wing doesn't vote well enough. And part of my sort of evidence for backing that up, part of me was even in America, the left bloc always won the popular vote. Now, Donald Trump broke that trend the first time since the 1990s, but I think it's gone so badly over there. I think that could be seen as an anomaly. And so when you say that they'll try and sell the idea that as a vote for the Māori Party, I don't know if that will stick quite like as a vote for Luxon, because I think that in general, to me, what I've seen for a long time is in general the left are more popular, but are terrible at playing the game of politics and don't activate. The right aren't, but they're very good at getting organised and getting out to vote. I mean, it's that classic idea that the left tend to make policies and the right tend to respond to left-wing policies. So yeah, it'll be an interesting one for next year, that's for sure.
Yeah, and that's not, like you say, that's no shade onto Party Māori. It's just that they're looking at how can we scare the soft Labour / national voter into not going back to Labour, and it's just scare politics. The boogeyman. It was 10 years ago it was the Greens, but the Greens have been in government now, and everyone knows they're not scary.
I also think with what we've seen this year with, the Treaty Principles Bill and the Regulatory Standards Bill, some of those soft Labour national voters might be kind of going, like Bomber always says, those National Party voters didn't vote for this shit. They voted because they wanted the price of their house to go up by 10%, not for all the other stuff. So I don't know, maybe we've always said that the thing to bring Māori together like nothing ever has before is Winston Peters and David Seymour. So, maybe they'll be hoisted by their own petard. Right, let's get to this last clip because it's a little bit longer. Maybe I'll cut out partway through, but they are talking about the voter registration changes. And we've already talked about this when Chris Bishop goes, no, I don't look at the polling. It's a bit the same when Jack challenges him on, but who registers late? Who is it? And he's like, well, lots of people, maybe, I don't know. Oh, who knows who registers late? So let's have a look at the conversation.
Your government has proposed closing voter registration almost 2 weeks before polling day. What parties are voters who enrol relatively late in the game most likely to support? Those parties that are currently in government or those parties that are currently...
I mean, how could anyone know that? I mean, would there be any data? Well, we don't know. They're just people. I don't know who they are.
Well, there's like hundreds of thousands of people now enroll in that period. So they'll be from all different parts. That's part of the problem.
Of course.
So many people now don't even think about it.
So who are they most likely to support?
I haven't got the foggiest idea because there's so many. We're now talking
You've seen this...
I call bullshit. Don't know. I call bullshit. I don't have the foggiest idea. Really?
Most likely to support.
I haven't got the foggiest idea because there's so many. We're now talking.
You've seen the special results in the last few years. Who have the special votes favoured? Parties on the left or parties on the right?
It varies a bit from electorate to electorate. I don't know, but that's not the point.
Who's gained more seats in the special votes in the last two elections?
Well, you know as well as I do that Nationals always loses 1 or 2 votes.
Hang on, Chris.
So now he knows.
A few minutes ago, you were like, well, who can know that? I don't know, lots of people. And now it's as well as I do, National loses. Oh, okay. Just an observation.
seats on the special.
And so this is the thing, right? Like, you are someone who clearly values and cherishes democracy. You've been involved with politics your entire life.
Can I just make the argument as to
Sure.
why the roll closing at some point is a good thing? Firstly, if we don't do this, we will now get to a situation where counting the votes takes weeks and weeks. It used to take 2.
Jack Tame has missed a point here. And Chewie said this, first of all, credit where credit's due. Luxon made a victory speech on fucking election night.
Yeah.
Like, we knew who won by about 9 p.m.
Yeah.
Just because we didn't get the absolute final last one seat, Luxon made a victory speech on election night. This is not a problem that you need to solve.
No. We didn't know if they were going to need New Zealand first, but we did know. Everyone knew. That's why they didn't start negotiations until the specials were in. It's just, and I mean, I worked in a couple of elections as polling clerk and then at HQ, and it's always taken a couple of weeks because, as you pointed out, the overseas votes come in. The guy
10 days.
The guy who voted in Invercargill but is enrolled in Napier, the special vote comes in, has to be checked.
Yeah.
You had a deadline that to get the results back to the centre in 2.5 weeks, I think it was. And if there's more people registering on election day, then just up the resourcing to check their registrations. They've got to be checked at some point. Do it after.
Yeah, and for people who didn't hear that, I phoned the Electoral Commission and just asked them a few questions about this. And international votes come back in a sealed box. The actual paper ballots come back from all over the world, and they've got 10 days after the election to get back. So that means, I think it was the 14th of October. That means they've got to be back here by the 25th of October. Then they get counted. So you're looking at the 27th, 28th, 29th already. So you're already at 2.5 weeks. And he's complaining about it taking 3 weeks. So he's actually complaining about it taking 3 days, because they're not suggesting that they're not going to keep the international votes the same, or like you've just said, if you're outside your electorate. So it's a solution to no problem, especially when these guys said on not election night, again, credit to Chewie, said when the negotiations with ACT in New Zealand First took so long, we can't rush democracy. It's what Luxon said.
Yeah.
And what are they doing? Trying to rush democracy.
Yeah.
We'll give them a few more minutes before we peel out.
Last election it took 3. It'll almost certainly be 3 next time, and it could be worse if we don't make these changes.
What's your evidence for that, Mr. Bishop, that it could be worse? Why are you saying that?
Because you're not hiring enough staff.
Yeah, okay.
Because they're not hiring enough staff. Yeah.
Hire more people.
This is why Australia closes the rolls.
Australia has compulsory voting.
But that's not relevant. I mean,
yes, it is. If you want to compare to the way Australia do it, you need to compare to the way Australia does it. Australia's compulsory. So you're suggesting we should close it off and have compulsory voting? No. Oh, okay. But that's you can't compare us to Australia then.
It's totally relevant.
It's not relevant at all.
It's a completely different system.
The UK closes the rolls earlier than we do.
But if you
we are an international outlier in the idea that you can rock up on election day.
Okay, so
unenroll,
let's put election day to one side.
Then vote.
Let's put election day to one side, though. We're talking about a 12 or 13 day period now, which is very different, right?
And it's a really clear period which says the rolls close here, and once that happens, you can start voting.
But why should we not believe that it isn't, given you yourself accept that generally the votes that come through...
Finally accept, you should have said, Jack.
Special votes that are cast during that period tend to favour your opponents rather than your party. Why should we believe that this isn't just a cynical measure to oppress your opponents?
No, it's fundamentally about the operation of and the efficient administration of an election, so that we can actually get a result and get the votes counted properly and get a result, and then the negotiations done, so New Zealand can have a government. And then the second thing, which, to be honest, no one...
Again, victory speech on election night. You guys took forever to get together and do your silly little dance. Maybe you should be more pointing that, when we were at school, when you point at someone, 3 fingers are pointing back at yourself. Maybe it's more about that, Mr. Bishop, maybe.
One's paid any attention to is the electoral roll. Firstly, it's a requirement of law to get on the roll. So you're meant to be on the roll. Jury rolls, for example.
I think we're done. It now goes into all the reasons why everyone should be registered. And this is the thing, just as a paraphrase, one of the things that Judith Collins found out when she said it was a breach of the Bill of Rights was one of the reasons it's a breach of the Bill of Rights, I'm paraphrasing, is because this is how New Zealand does elections. So because this is how we do them, then to change it is a problem. It doesn't matter if you compare it to Australia or England. This is how we do them. So all those people who aren't locked in like us, hearing all these announcements, will go, yeah, Dad signed up on the day last year. I'll just do that this time around because they haven't been watching Jack Tame or listening to, I'm sure they're listening to us, but that one episode where we didn't say it, they're not listening to us and they won't know. And so people will be disenfranchised through, I'm going to say the word ignorance, not because you're ignorant, but they just don't know. They don't have the information. And that's not okay. It's not okay to disenfranchise someone because they're not fully informed in what is probably the most important role we play in society in a democracy, which is to cast a vote. No one should be disenfranchised. There should be nothing put in the way of voting for anyone. If you're putting a hindrance in the way, then you are disenfranchising people who want to vote. Clint.
Yeah. And I mean, the National ACT MP Todd Stevenson revealed the real agenda here, didn't he? When he said, we don't want lazy people rocking up on election day and voting to tax other people's money away. That's how they view that. You know, they've clearly got a picture of that late enroller in their head, and they think that person is not worthy of a vote. And if there's a way to take the vote away from them, then that's a good thing. And because they vote wrong, that's what this ultimately comes down to.
Yeah, they vote wrong, meaning they vote left. That's what they vote wrong. Yeah.
And so everything else is just a post hoc justification. And the they're not just rolling back the on the day enrolment that was introduced before 2020. They're going back in and changing you can enroll up to 13 days out, which was set in law in 1993. So again, a national government. So they're rolling back this huge, because they know that so many people are going to get caught out next election, like you say, just not being aware.
Yeah,
thousands, tens of thousands of people are going to find they can't vote. They're going to be disenfranchised by this, and they know perfectly well that's the case. And that's why they're doing it. So yeah, and the thing is now, like with NCEA, like with all these other reforms, the question is how do we now? It's going to undermine trust in government, and so there's going to have to be some kind of cross-partisan solution after the next election, if there's a change of government or whenever, so that we can have trust in these outcomes again, so that there's not so clearly a party putting their hand on the scales in their favor. Because that's the worry about this, is that you end up with an American situation where people say the elections are rigged because they're trying to rig it.
Just to have a think about it as well. I know last time round they said 150,000 people used that late registration option. It's not quite the same, but New Zealand First, 170,000 votes at the last election. So imagine all of those votes. New Zealand First got 20,000, which puts them down at the number of New Zealand Party, whoever that is. That number of people gone. You know, it'll be half of the Green voters gone, 330,000. I don't mean literally. I mean, if you looked at it in that sort of way. I mean, Te Pāti Māori got 87,000, 88,000. Twice the number of voters that voted for Te Pāti Māori gone if it was the same numbers this time around. So it's just not okay. But like I said before, one person's not okay, especially when we have a system that works. And you've already got a 2.5 week lag anyway. So, and as Clint's been saying, put more people on, and then you won't have a problem. Double the number of counters. And if it is really a conversation around making this more streamlined and efficient, let's have that conversation. Because I'd be down for a digital, to investigate the digital option. We've all got IRD numbers, way to voting, let's make it easier. Why are you making it harder? Which is exactly what you're doing.
And there's, I think I tweeted to you that extract from Judith Collins, the Section 7 report about how this breaches the Bill of Rights Act. And what she's saying there, the truth is, what the officials are saying, and Judith Collins has had to put in this report because it's required of her by law, and she's trying to tone it down as much as she could, but this is as much as she could. They're saying that actually you'll end up with more special votes cast because Guy will walk up, maybe one of these voters that Tania Waikato has been talking about, and say, oh, I'm enrolled to vote here. Oh, my name's not on the roll. Okay. And you know what they do in that situation? You cast a special vote. So you still vote on the day, you put in your details, and afterwards there's an effort to try and reconcile it. Were you just saying the wrong address? Have you moved electorate, in which case your party vote still counts, but your electorate vote does not? And that's actually more time consuming. It can be, especially if you end up denying that person's vote, because that's a big deal. That can be more time consuming than just letting them update their registration details on the day.
And to wrap up this conversation, just because you've evoked the name of Judith Collins, we can't say that name again or she'll turn up in a mirror behind you. Of course, she came out and said this is going to breach the Bill of Rights. And then the next day she fucking voted for it in its first reading.
Yeah.
The absolute cowardice of these MPs. You know, we've had on MPs from the 1980s and stuff around the nuclear thing, how they talked about walking across the house and, you know, she said basically it was a breach of our rights, and then she voted for it.
Yeah. Well, like I say, the officials said it was a breach of the rights and she had to table the report because it was part of her job.
And then she wouldn't ask any questions about it. In fact, she was on what's his name, Bridge, the Herald show the next morning, and he didn't ask her about it. And I guarantee it's because she said no questions about that, or I won't come on.
Yeah,
shocking.
No, it's sad, and you know, I never quite understand. Like, do you want your political career to look back on it in 80 years, you know, when you're 80 and go, you know, I helped deny some people a vote. You know, I helped save some money by making sure there were more people living in the streets. Is that just what you want to have done with your life?
Shocking.
Makes me sad.
Couple of texts here, and then we'll get on to Tania, then we'll wrap up. CGT to buy back assets that were sold for cuts, says Overred Rover. Also says a monopoly government is not very good at balancing the books. Also, Stay Positive says, why is Pat so washed out? I'm just a bit tired. That's why. No, the truth is this is the dog cam because my one stopped working. So this is dog cam. And yes, I know I have to change the exposure on it. I'll try and look beautiful again for you tomorrow.
You should come to my room, mate, where it's all white in background and I look bright pink because of the light above me.
Let's just have a look at a couple of clips from this Marae show. I'm only going to do two. The first one is talking about the government says the changes will improve the voting process. So sort of what we've just been talking about. You've got academic Emmy Rākete there, and of course our very own Tania Waikato to talk about this with Miriama Kamo.
So as we know, the electoral amendment bill had its first reading this week in Parliament. Some of the key changes include closing the enrolment 13 days before election day, creating a new offence that prohibits the provision of free food and drink within 100 metres of a voting place, and a total ban on prisoner voting. So the government, Tania, says these changes will improve the voting process. What's your key concern?
Well, my key concern is that there are potentially hundreds of thousands of people that will be prevented from voting at the next election because of these changes. And the Attorney General's report into this legislation confirms that that is a possibility, and that this type of legislation doesn't need to go that far in order to achieve what it is aiming to achieve. So there are some real concerns here around one of the most basic fundamental democratic rights, which is the right to vote, being taken away from a number of people. And what we also know is that Maori will be disproportionately affected by this, as well as people who are in vulnerable living situations. So for the government to come out and say that this is about efficiency, this is about essentially one extra week of counting votes compared to taking away one of the most fundamental democratic rights we have, I think it's voter suppression. Just blatantly.
The government, of course, says we're not taking away anything. We're just making sure that people will...
Well, that's false, because they're taking away the right to register on election day. So even if you're trying to say, but they now can, you are definitely taking something away, because that is no longer going to exist. You have removed that it would be a takeaway Mr. Bishop and Mr. Luxon and Mr. Goldsmith, I think, who might be in charge of this whole dog shit thing.
Oh, and I mean, is that not a valid concern, Emmy?
I mean, it doesn't seem like it, right? The why, there's no case, no one is yet to be able to argue like why this needs to be done. There was no enormous problem being caused by having to count special votes last time. No horrible logistical problems caused by people signing out to vote on the day.
So the minister says, well, it was 3 weeks. We had to wait 3 weeks. It was 2 weeks, but in the election beforehand, then 3 weeks in the last election. We just don't want to have that anymore.
When we got invaded and our entire society was dismantled, one of the big pitches the British made to us was that they were bringing a superior model of governance, right, where everyone gets to have a say. And now they're saying that that's too hard. If we think that these values are important, if we really think that democracy is this important special thing, why are we throwing it out as soon as it gets slightly difficult to administer? There's been no case made for why this needs to be done, when there are very obvious partisan effects that are going to come about as a consequence of these rules. I think we should be thinking about like who benefits from doing this, not ordinary people.
Yeah, I love that idea, especially coming from Maori. You know, you guys promised us this fantastic system, this Westminster system that's going to help everyone and be good. Oh, it's getting a bit hard now, so we're going to change it. We're going to change it to a whole bunch of the people who we were promised this system will be disenfranchised by it. It's a very lovely point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's play this last clip. The last clip is talking about the being dropped off the Māori roll. So we had Tania on last week, and the Te Pāti Māori have taken a case to court saying that people have been dropped off the Māori roll, and including Keisha Castle-Hughes, who's publicised this through her socials. And of course, the problem now is if people have dropped off that roll for whatever reason, nefarious or not, or clerical error, the close-off date has passed to get put on the Māori roll. So some are now finding out that they can't get back on to the Māori roll. And look, let's just not play the conspiracy card. Even for a technical glitch, they can't now do it. Tania has been spearheading this. She has been receiving messages, and she says from thousands of people. I got a message today from one Pakeha saying, I am also been knocked off, but it seemed other than that, it primarily, if not only, is impacting Māori. And I know in this current climate we're in, that's going to cause some people to get heckles up based on this government. But whether it's nefarious, which feels less likely, or a glitch, I think people need to have the availability to be made whole again. If they want to be on the Māori roll, they should be able to get put back on. And yet, you know, you might just have to change. You might have to change your rules to fix up the glitch from within the government somewhere. Anyway, that was a fucking long introduction. Let's play the clip.
If Māori voters are being deregistered at random without their knowledge, how can he be sure that his electoral reforms will not disenfranchise whānau who have followed all the correct procedures?
Because anyone, Māori or non-Māori, just needs to be registered on the roll 13 days before the election. There's plenty of time for that to happen.
Is that not a valid point, Tania? There's plenty of time.
Well, the information that we've been getting back from the thousands and thousands of people that have been contacting us is that this is a real thing. This is not just people, you know, making it up or drop kicks that have failed to update their details. I'm talking about kuia in their 60s and 70s that have voted for 50 plus years, never moved, all of a sudden finding themselves removed from the Māori roll. And for me, anyway, it is the height of disrespect to our kaumātua and kuia who find themselves in this situation to say, you're just wrong. And they've got proof of being taken off the roll and not being able to get back on in time for the local body elections or in time for the tamaki elections. So the fact that this is happening now and that it seems to be so widespread, we're going to find out when this court case moves further along. But it just highlights that taking away that fail-safe, that ability for people to...
Because that's a big part of it, right? So... Like, let's not even if one wasn't worried about this one issue, for whatever glitches happen to whatever voter in the future, as you say, Clint, they roll up to the election booth and for some reason they're not on, then they're going to miss out on voting. So it's this is the whole point, that if there's been a mistake, or if someone's made a mistake, or something's been they've delivered it back and it's got lost in the post or whatever, those people, through no fault of their own, will now not be able to vote because they won't be able to register there and then, which they currently can do. So I think that's one of the points Tania's making.
Roll on the day and to update their details on the day is going to have a massive effect, and they don't even know now how many problems there are in the system. They can't guarantee now that this system is 100% functioning. So by the time we get to the next election, when that 13-day cutoff happens, we are going to see so many different problems, and the issues around, okay, how many people is it going to affect? How many people are actually going to lose their right to vote? We are going to be an experiment. Next election, we're going to be the experiment, and it's going to be Maori, Pacifica, people that are at the lowest end of being able to do anything about it that are most affected, and they know that. That's the cynical part about this. They know that those who are most vulnerable are going to be most affected and most likely to be disenfranchised, which is why I'm saying this, because they don't have a voice, so we have to be their voice.
There you go. There you go, Clint. I shared my views kind of before and during that. What are your thoughts? Anything?
Yeah, it would be really hard to look at these reports of Maori being dropped off the roll for seemingly no reason and not be suspicious. I mean, I hope that there is nothing nefarious going on here, and I hope that the court case gets to the heart of it, because it doesn't look good. And if there are technical glitches, then that too invalidates, for exactly the reason you're just saying, it invalidates going to cutting off enrolment early if the Electoral Commission is just making a hash of it, because people will be disenfranchised. So this court case is going to be crucial. The information they get out in the discovery phase, when presumably they'll find out how many voters have been kicked off the roll and for what reasons over recent times, that will be extremely enlightening, and maybe will come and if it does show that the Electoral Commission has been incompetent in its administration of the role, or can't be trusted to ensure that the role is accurate come the close off of registration, maybe then these reforms will have to be dropped, if there's any right thinking left in this government. Hopefully there will be, because it's really, really concerning.
I mean, not to kind of belabor the point or say the same thing again, but there's going to be errors. Like, there's no perfect system. And if you can't register on the day, that means those errors turn into non-votes.
Yeah,
it goes without saying. And I'll go so far as to say, person who's a bit over it all and a bit lazy, and they're like, oh, I screwed the election, I'm not going to go vote in that. And then 2 weeks or a week before the election, he goes, actually, you know what? I think I might. Yeah, he does get the right to vote.
Yeah.
Right. Even if he's a drop kick 2 weeks, 3 weeks out, but then he changes his mind a week out, then he gets to participate in democracy. You don't get to say no. And that's sort of what it comes down to.
There was, in 2017, before the election night party, Jacinda got nervous that we were going to be wearing these branded T-shirts that didn't have authorization statements on them, so I had to go and buy a new T-shirt. So I was in Farmers, and I got a Laser Kiwi T-shirt, and the guy was like, "Oh, so what do you do, mate?" "Oh, I work for the Labour Party." "Oh, is it election day today, is it?" I'm like, Yeah. He goes, "Oh, not," and he's just a young guy. I think he just turned 18. He goes, "Not sure if I'm enrolled. Can I still vote?" And I said, "Look," because this is before the change, I said, "Go down there and cast a special vote anyway, even if your name's not on the roll, because maybe you are on the roll, maybe you're enrolled in a different electorate. Get down there, give it a go." And that guy wasn't a dropkick.
Yeah.
He had as much right to the vote as I did, and just because he didn't understand the state's bureaucracy as well as I did not mean that he should have been disenfranchised.
Yeah.
And as we were saying before, if he did go down and cast a special vote, not knowing if he was enrolled or not, because he wasn't able to update his details on election day at that point, then he would have created more administrative burden for the government post-election and delayed the count. So, yeah, this is not about fixing the real problem in terms of the speed of election results. This is about screwing the scrum.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty clear. And so it's fascinating to watch Bishop in the last piece kind of, oh, no, it's about efficiency. It's about efficiency. It's like, well, okay, why don't we have that conversation? Why don't we have the conversation on how do we make these elections more efficient? Because the solution you're giving is not it. You're saving between 3 and 5 days, right? That's not efficient. And maybe we should also say political parties only have a few days to form a coalition. Maybe that would be another way to find efficiency, not sit there. Well, maybe we should say that there's no Winston going fishing to speed it along and that kind. Maybe we should ban Winston Peters from going fishing, to speed the election result along. So it's like, this is the answer to a question that no one's asking. This is the answer to a problem that doesn't exist. But what it is doing, and again, credit to Chewie. I've got my stickers. These are my stickers here. Credit to Chewie.
You miss your mate.
Yeah, miss my mate. He says it all the time. He says the problem they're trying to solve is to become government. And that's what this is, a problem. This is the question that it's solving. How do we get to be government again? Oh, we can knock out. I mean, there won't be 100. If this comes in, there won't be 150,000, but there might be 20. There might be 50. 50,000 is quite a lot, Yep. So there'll be some. There might be one, and one's not okay. I don't want to be all like dramatic and stuff and pull on the heartstrings. But it's like, people have literally fought and died for these rights. And Mr. fucking 8% doesn't get to stomp on, 100 years of practice because you want an election result 4 days sooner.
Yeah.
It's just not the way it goes. Sorry, sunshine.
Yeah. No, there's going to have to be some rebuilding done after this to make sure that we can have trust in these systems going forward, and 100%. that will take cross-party consensus. It's hard because even if you agree cross-party, then when you lose power, the guys can still come in and go, "Nah, we changed our minds." Yeah. But we need to restore trust in these things and not be mucking them around for political ends.
Hey, Clint, thanks for coming on tonight, mate. It's a bit of a longer one than usual, but that was nice. It was lovely to have you on. A couple of quick chats before we head off. Kai Mātara says, love Emmy Rākete. I really suggest reading their article, Inhuman, Parasites, Post-Humanism, and Papatuanuku. Amazing read and changed my perspective. And also, Bear Tato Time. Thank you for the $20 super chat. Can I request a shout out for City Vision? They're the coalition between Labour, Greens and Community Independents for the Waitemata Local Board, Central Auckland and its surrounding suburbs. They're all good eggs. Interesting thing you've just done there, Bera Toto. I have to probably have a think about when people put someone puts in like $100 super chat. I'd like to say, go act. It's like, don't know how I feel about that. Well, anyway, Clint, anything you want to leave us with? We're going to go out and play the thing. Thank you for being a part of this. You want to tell the whānau about or anything they need to know?
No, look, just thanks for having me again, mate. And you guys are building an amazing community here, and it's always a pleasure to be part of it. So thanks for having me.
Yeah. All right, dude. Well, pleasure. You can hang around through the credits if you want. You don't have to. If you do hang around, though, you need to dance. That's the rules.
I love the credits, mate.
Oh, all right.
I love the song.
All right, here we go.
Help us settle a debate, whether it be thoughtful or funny, even if we're all creatures of hate. It's a fine line that we're walking together. For better, push aside the temptation to berate. Let's take a note of the corners we stand in. As many points as the hairs on my chinny chin chin. When the news that we're watching is hairy, knowing all the things that we need to be wary of. Like the rich have the hand out for rewards, while the many have to work at what they can't afford. And the rest of us ain't paying attention, or maybe have questions we're too worried to mention. Other media is still dwelling on trivial facts, vetting peas from the rice and the mice from the rats, and picking and choosing a war warpath to run. Linking ourselves with the hill to die on. It's gotta come down to a welcoming vibe with an A and a self and a higher in mind. All heavily, either this way or that, and we'll be analyzed by what Chewie and Pat. With the evil in the world trying to mess with your head, and you're sitting on the couch, you're thinking chivalry's dead. Each night, 2 nights, they're gonna sing you to bed. It's big hairy news.
I noticed someone said I didn't look like a dog, even though I was in the dog cam. So that was nice of you.
Well, it's cool.
Oh, all right, Clint. I mean, you know how this goes. This is our goodbye. Is there anything final you want to say for the night? Anything you want to get out there?
All from me, bro.
All right, John. That's it from me. We'll catch you tomorrow night for another edition of Big Hairy News. Hooroo, team.